Chapter 4 of Skellig by David Almond. I hardly slept that night. Every time I did drop off, I saw him coming out of the garage door and coming through the wilderness to the house. I saw him in my bedroom. I saw him come right to the bed. He stood there all dusty and white with dead blue bottles all over him. "What do you want?" he whispered. I said, "What do you want?" I told myself I was stupid. I'd never seen him at all, that it had all been part of a dream. I lay there in the dark. I could hear Dad snoring, and when I listened hard, I could hear the baby breathing. Her breathing was cracked and hissy. In the middle of the night, when it was pitch black, I dropped off again, and then she started bawling. I heard Mum getting up to feed her. I heard Mum's voice cooing and comforting. Then there was silence again, apart from Dad snoring. I listened hard for the baby again, and I couldn't hear her. It was already getting light when I got up and tiptoed into their room. Her cot was beside their bed. They were laying fast asleep with their arms around each other. I looked down at the baby. I slipped my hand under the covers and touched her. I could feel her heart beating fast. I could feel the thin rattle of her breath and her chest rising and falling gently. I felt how hot it was in there, how soft her bones were, how tiny she was. There was a dribble of spit and milk on her neck. I wondered if she were going to die. They'd been scared about that in the hospital. Before they let her come home, she'd been in a glass case with tubes and wires sticking in her, and we'd all stood around staring in like she was in a fish tank. I took my hand away and tucked the covers around her again. Her face was dead white and her hair was dead black. They told me I had to keep praying for her, but I didn't know what to pray. "Hurry up and get strong if you're going to," I whispered. Mum half woke up and saw me there. "Oh, what do you want, love?" she whispered. She stretched out her hand towards me. "Nothing," I whispered and tiptoed back to my room. I looked down into the wilderness. There was a blackbird singing away on the garage roof. I thought of him lying behind the tea chest with cobwebs in his hair. What was he doing there? Chapter 5. I asked them at breakfast what was going to happen to the garage now. "When are they coming to clear it out?" I said. Mum clicked her tongue and sighed and looked up at the ceiling. "When we can get somebody to come," said Dad. "It's not important now, son. Not at the moment." "Okay," I said. He was going to be off work today so he could get on with jobs round the house. Mum was taking the baby for more checkups at the hospital. "Should I stay off so I can help?" I said. "Yes," Dad said. "You can take Ernie's old toilet out and scrub the floorboards that go round it." "Oh, I think I'll go to school," I said, and I shoved my packed lunch into my sack and headed out. Before we'd moved, they asked me if I wanted to move schools as well, but I didn't. I wanted to stay at Kenny Street High with Leaky and Coot. I didn't mind that I'd have to get the bus through town. That morning I told myself that it gave me time to think about what was going on. I tried to think about it but then I couldn't think. I watched the people getting on and off. I looked at them as they read their papers or picked their nails, or as they looked dreamily out of the windows. I thought how you could never tell just by looking at them what they were thinking or what was happening in their lives. Even when you got daft people on the bus, or people who were drunk, people who went on stupid and shouted rubbish or tried to tell you all about themselves, you could never really tell about them either. I wanted to stand up and say, "There's a man in our garage, and my sister is ill, and it's the first day I've travelled from the new house to the old school." But of course I didn't. I just went on looking at all the faces and swinging backwards and forwards when the bus swung round the corners. I knew if somebody looked at me, they'd know nothing about me, just like I knew nothing about them. It was strange being back at school again. Loads had happened to me, but school had just stayed the same. Rasputin still asked us to lift up our hearts and voices and sing out loud in assembly. The Yeti yelled at us to keep to the left in the corridors, And Monkey Mitford went red in the face and stamped his feet when we didn't know our fractions. Miss Clark's got tears in her eyes when she told us the story of Icarus, how his wings had melted when he flew too close to the sun, and how he had dropped like a stone past his father Daedalus into the sea. At lunchtime, Leaky and Coot argued for ages about whether a shot had gone over the line. I couldn't be bothered with it all. I went to the fence at the edge of the field and stared over the town towards where I lived now. While I was standing there, Mrs. Dando, one of the auxiliaries, came over to talk to me. She'd known my parents for years. "Are you okay, Michael?" she said. "Fine." "And how's that baby?" "Fine too." "You're not playing football today?" I shook my head. "Tell your parents I was asking after them," she said. She took a fruit gum out of her pocket and held it out to me. A fruit gum? It was what she gave the new kids when they were sad or something. "Just for you," she whispered and winked. "No," I said, "no thanks." And I ran back and did a brilliant sliding tackle on Coot. All day I wondered about telling somebody what I'd seen, but I told nobody. I said to myself it had just been a dream. It must have been just a dream. Chapter 6. At home there was a hole in the floor where Ernie's toilet had been. It was filled with new cement. The plywood screen had gone, Ernie's old gas fire had been taken away, and there was just a square black gap behind the hearth. The floor was soaking wet and it stank of disinfectant. Dad was filthy and wet and grinning. He took me into the wilderness. The toilet was standing there in the middle of the thistles and the weeds. "I thought it would make a nice garden seat for us," he said. The gas fire and the plywood were down by the garage door, but they hadn't been taken inside. He looked at me and winked. "Come and see what I've found." He led me down to the garage door. "Hold your nose," he said. He bent down and started to open a newspaper parcel. "Ready?" It was a parcel of birds, 4 of them. "I found them behind the fire," he said. "They must have got stuck in the chimney and couldn't get out again." You could make out that 3 of them were pigeons because of their grey and white feathers. The last one was pigeon-shaped, but it was all black. "Is it a pigeon as well?" I asked. "Yes, but it's been there a long time, that's all." He took my hand. "Touch it," he said. "Feel it. Go on, it's okay." I let him hold my fingers against the bird. It was as hard as a stone. Even the feathers were hard. "Been so long, it's nearly a fossil," he said. "It's as hard as stone," I said. "That's right, hard as stone." I went and washed my hands in the kitchen. "Today okay?" he asked. "Yeah, Leaky and Coot said they might come over on Sunday." "That's good." "You managed the buses okay then?" I nodded. "Might be able to drive you there a bit next week," he said, "once we've sorted everything out a bit." "Okay," I said. "Mrs. Dando asked about the baby." "You told her she was fine?" "Yeah," I said. "Good. Get some Coke and a sandwich or something. I'll make tea when the others come home." Then he went upstairs to have a bath. I looked down through the wilderness. I waited for ages listening to Dad's bath water banging its way through the pipes. I got my torch off the kitchen shelf. My hands were trembling. I went out past Ernie's old toilet, the fire and the dead pigeons, and I stood at the garage door and switched the torch on. I took a deep breath and tiptoed inside. I felt the cobwebs and the dust, and I imagined the whole thing would collapse. I heard things scuttling and scratching. I edged slowly past the rubbish and the ancient furniture, and my heart was thudding and thundering. I told myself I was stupid. I told myself I'd been dreaming. I told myself I wouldn't see him again. But I did.
Good morning, Year 5. It is day 3 of our English learning, and we're going to have a look at writing a diary entry as if you are Michael from Skellig. I hope you're enjoying the book. Mr. Hulks and I really love it, and we're hoping that it will give you some enthusiasm for doing some writing back at home. Okay, so we've asked you to write a diary today based on chapters 4, 5 and 6. So what we've done is we've put a box it up together to help you write. So let's have a look at this together. First of all, you'll want your introduction. And as you know, with a diary, we'll need a date. And I've suggested Monday, as Michael goes back to school during these few days. And then we need a greeting. Dear Diary. Then we have a look at the events. What has happened over these 3 chapters? Well, he found him, didn't he, in the garage. Then he couldn't sleep and he had nightmares. He worries about the baby. He goes back to school. He has a new bus journey. He gets a bit fed up with Mrs. Dando questioning him. He's very happy to see his friends Coot and Leaky, but things even at school aren't quite right. And Dad started some work back at the house. And at the end of those 3 chapters, he goes back into the garage. And of course, he, the strange creature in the garage, is real and he is still there. Now in a diary, you use lots of feelings. So I've made a list and tried to tie them into the events that I've put in. So 2 days ago I found him and I've put disbelief in finding him. Then the dreams, confused and scary, makes him think of his baby's sister and he has a fear of her stopping breathing and he goes and touches her. He's very alone on the bus and wants to shout about all the things that are going on in his life, and he wonders about other people and what they're thinking and feeling and what's going on in their lives. And then he gets to school and he has mixed feelings. He's happy with his friends, but he feels a bit strange and sad, and he's annoyed with Mrs. Dando. Then we've suggested that you leave it on a cliffhanger because it's a diary entry and it's going to go on again. Michael's writing about his experience from the last couple of days, but he's still got the rest of the story ahead of him. So for an example, we've put, would he question himself at the end of the diary? Should I try to help him? Is he dangerous? I just can't decide what to do. So you can use those ideas to help you. You might want to add in more detail, write about other bits, please do. But it's there if you'd like it to help you with your writing. So what will we need in our toolkit to write a good diary entry? Well, we'll follow the diary writing style. We'll put in the date and we will address our diary with Dear Diary. We will write in the first person as I, and we'll discuss we if we're with our friends. You're going to write in chronological order how it happened. You're going to use informal, chatty language. You're going to write in the past tense. Please include lots of details about the events and places. You might use a noun phrase to describe things. Include lots of feelings, thoughts and opinions. Remember, a diary is where you would keep your secret thoughts and feelings, so feel free to explore those as Michael. And then we've asked you to think about how you start your sentences and not to repeat then, or anything like it, or and we've suggested you use adverbials. And on the next slide, I've put some to help you. So if you have a look at the fronted adverbials, they're really interesting ways to start some sentences, especially paragraph starting. It links paragraphs together nicely. See if you can use some of those. I can even spot over here behind the shed. You may want to use a behind or an under or in the garage. So use those to help you. And then we've gone on to a model text, and we've started the diary. And it says, Dear Diary, I thought if I wrote some of this down, I might be able to get rid of some of this off my mind. Since moving into our house, everything has changed and some of it doesn't even feel real. I feel a mixture of fear of excitement all the time and I cannot concentrate on anything. And it goes on just to start the opening of your diary. You can use this if you wish. You can hug the text or you can write your own. Continue writing up to all the events up to the end of chapter 6. Please send us your diary entries through Purple Mash. We would love to read them. Email them to us and then we will comment on them and send them back to you. Good luck with your diary. I look forward to reading it.